Lighting for infinite white backgrounds. Here are some tips how to get this gorgeous white background that makes me look like I'm floating in space. Looks amazing, but actually setting this up is more difficult than you might think. So let's talk about lighting tips for an infinite background video. I'm Chase Turnbow, and I help videographers create a business and a lifestyle that they love and that is profitable. So subscribe to my channel if you're interested in growing a video production company. An infinite white background is one of the most coveted looks in all of videography. It just looks cool, and you can take it almost to any brand, and it just gives a very nice flavor. Now, the number one tip I'd say is to make sure to set your exposure correctly. For instance, if I was too bright from the very beginning in camera, you can't really go back from that. You can't, if you blow out certain parts of my face where certain parts are too white, that means that there's no detail, and you can't go back and add detail if within the camera it was completely blown out to begin with. So make sure that you set your exposure to where the background is blown out and there's no detail and it's super bright, but the exposure on the foreground on the person looks natural and appealing. Number two, make the background much wider than the foreground. I'm gonna show you exactly how to do that. So cutting over to our iPhone cam here, you can see that we're in a very cool studio, and maybe you're saying, oh man, I don't have this. Okay, fine. But you probably do have a white wall, or at least you can buy a paper backdrop to utilize, and the lighting still works the exact same way. So don't get too caught up on this location. But the second tip is make sure the lighting on the background is much greater than the lighting on the foreground. Here's kind of an example of how we do that. If you take a look right over here, we have two lights. The top one has 3 light bulbs and the bottom one has 1. Now there's no special strategy behind that. It's just a lot of light, and we're bouncing it, pointing it directly to the middle, and kind of floods this area where the camera is pointed. What this does is it overexposes the background, and it blows out the background to where there's no detail back there at all. Now, the problem is, which leads me to tip number 3, is you have to consider spill. Spill is when the background light kind of reflects off the background and bounces and gives you a not so flattering look where there's light spots on your face or on your shoulders that just aren't appealing overall aesthetically. So to combat and avoid spill, we use flags. What we're using specifically is just foam core boards that you can purchase from a craft store. Very simple. And it just bounces the light back to the background and shields it from bouncing onto the subject's face or shoulders. Another thing to add is to make sure your subject is not too close to the wall, because if you're too close to the wall, it doesn't matter. You can still see this spill that's coming on me, and you're not going to be able to flag it off in the first place. So I would say give yourself at least 3 or 4 feet from where your subject is sitting and the background. And finally, tip number 4, you want to use the same light temperature for all of your lights. I'm currently using fluorescent bulbs that are about 5,500 Kelvin. If you're using tungsten, then use all tungsten bulbs. Whatever you're using, or maybe LEDs, make sure to set them all to the same light temperature. This is not the type of shoot where you want to get creative and have the background one light temperature and your foreground another temperature. What that's going to do is bring a cast on the background that's different than the foreground. And oh my gosh, it's going to really mess you up if for some reason you just have all different types of light. So we made sure, because there's about 3 different sources of light in here before, and we just had to shut them all off and use our own lights, because above us, I believe these are tungsten bulbs, and then we have other fluorescents that are a completely different light color. And if we would have left those on, this entire scene would have looked terrible. So keep that in mind. Keep all your lights one color and consistent with this particular style of lighting. I'm Chase Turnbow. Thank you for watching. Drop me a comment if you have any further questions about infinite white backgrounds, how to light them, how to shoot them, or if it's a different filming style that you'd like to learn about.